Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to introduce you all to texturing. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a cube, and from here I'm just going to go ahead and scale this, and let's just go 5, 5, and 5, and then I'm going to drag this up just so it's just above the ground plane, and I can always just check the distance. That's pretty good here in my side viewport, and now I'm ready to basically get started. So one of the things I want to show you first when unwrapping is what the default UVs look like on this object. So if I go up here under the modeling tab here, make sure you're on modeling, and then go to UV and UV editor. Now in here, this is what your UVs look like. And to just explain a little bit more in detail what this is, so how it works is it only gives you one square and that you're allowed to sort of use as texture space. So it's x-axis and y-axis, or U and V basically, and it's going to go from 0 to 1 vertically and 0 to 1 horizontally, and they both intersect, and this is your entire space to work with is 1, 1 here. So this big square right here is our UV space. Now the default UVs of any object are not always ideal. However, you are able to use them, but I'm going to show you, at least for this particular instance, a much better, higher quality and better resolution to work with, and that doesn't take more than just a few extra clicks. So I'm going to first close out of this UV editor, and what I'm going to do now is show you how to have both the UV editor and the viewport on the screen at the same time. If you are using dual monitors or more, it is awesome to be able to have your UV editor on one screen while having your viewport on another screen. But just in case you don't have dual monitors, let me show you how to work around that. So under your Panels tab here in your viewport, just click on the Panels tab, scroll down to Saved Layouts, and then come down here to persp/UV editor. persp/UV editor. Go ahead and click on that. And now you'll see that we've got our perspective viewport in one pane here and our UV editor in another pane. Now, the next thing I want to do is unwrap this. And there's two different ways to access this. There's one like sort of keyboard shortcut and one, I guess, kind of long way. But let me go ahead and show you how to do it. So with your object selected, go to UV in the top corner up here, UV, and then go down to Automatic. And you'll see what this is doing is it's creating this projection, poly-auto projection, of this object. So it's projecting the UVs from x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, so on and so forth, and also from both sides, which is awesome. So that's what these transparent planes in here are for, and all it's doing is showing you the angles at which it is projecting those UVs from. So you'll notice it went from that sort of upside down T to these scattered cubes. Now the scattered cubes here are much, much better to work with. And the main reason being is that they are far larger, and that larger space is crucial, especially when you only have this sort of 1-to-1 ratio to work with. So just to show you really quickly another way to access it, and you see the size of the cubes are much different. I'm going to click on my cube one more time. I'm going to hold spacebar, and I'm going to go to UV and scroll to Automatic. And you'll see it does the same exact thing. Now in here I need to find a way out to bring these into a editing software like a Photoshop. So I'm going to use Photoshop. So how I do that is I need to be able to select these. and this is just selecting the faces, but I need to be able to select the actual UVs. And the UVs, hold right click in your UV editor and go to UV, are actually basically where the verts are located. And it's the same thing here. If you go to UV, UV, you'll see that these are the UVs, and verts, same difference. But they are actually different. So, I'm going to go to UV, and I'm going to highlight all of these. I could also go to Tools and move UV Shell Tool, do a click and drag over all of these, and then from here, I can export these images as long as I have them all selected. So I can go into Image, and then go UV Snapshot, and that's Image and UV Snapshot. And then I can go ahead and browse where I'm going to place this and give it a file name. I'm going to name it createuvs.tga, and I'm going to be sure to add the extension in there. And the reason I do this is because in previous versions, I think like 2015 and earlier, you had to add the extension manually, otherwise it wouldn't save right. So it's become a habit of mine over the years to just include it anyway. Now, if you do click save, and at any point, yes, I would like to replace it, because I'm just saving it over the previous one. Now, if at any point you do run into some type of error where it doesn't save out properly, there's two things to check. One, make sure you named it and added the extension on there. And two, make sure you had all of the UVs selected that you wanted to export as an image file. So since I'm saving this as a TGA, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have this set to Targa. And by default, it might be at Maya IFF up here, and we're going to change it to Targa. Now in here also, I'm going to set my X, PX, and size Y, PX. PX stands for pixels. And I'm going to set that to 2048 by 2048. In fact, I can actually change that to 1024 by 1024. And since I have lock aspect ratio in, it will automatically lock to uniformly to those pixels. So 1024 is a super standard pixel size for a texture. And that's everything I'm going to change. I'm just going to keep it just like that, and I'm going to click apply and close. And it's going to ask me if I would like to overwrite yada yada, and yes, I do. So now in Photoshop, I'm going to go ahead and open up Photoshop. And I'm going to ignore this create image for now. I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to open up my Create UVs. Now's the time where I need to start looking for a texture. Now, I would include this in the Canvas shell, but I really want you to know how to find your own textures online, and I want you to be able to find them without having any issues. So, basically, I'm going to open up Google Chrome, and in Google Chrome here, I'm going to just type in www.textures.com. This used to be known as CG Textures. So I used to type in, or still actually do. Oh, it even says it right here. Formerly cgtextures.com. I still type in cgtextures.com, and it automatically transports me right here to this website. Now, this is a great website. It's got tons, hundreds, thousands of textures on here, and one of the easiest things is it also has a search menu. Now, before I even start searching for anything, I might as well explain to you how to log in. So up here in the top right hand corner, be sure to, if you don't already have an account, create new account. It's going to ask you for like a username, a password. I think that's it. And then it'll ask you to confirm an email, so make sure you check your email, confirm it, and you're good to go. And it allows you to download like 15 credits per month. Right here. I have 14 left because I downloaded one. And I'm going to go in here and type create in my search. So it told me, it said it found 20 textures with the keyword crates. In fact, I'm going to do crate. Just a crate. There we go. So I'm just looking, found 61 textures with the keyword crate. So I'm just looking for a texture of a wooden crate. So I went ahead and I went with this one, but there are a multitude of different ones, and you can select whichever one you'd like. Okay? So I clicked on this one, and for this exercise I just did the smallest file. If you'd like and need higher quality images, you can always access the premium access. And also, just a side note, be sure to check the licensing and things, license information. Down, it's on this website somewhere, and it'll tell you what you can and can't use these for. For our purpose, it's totally fine. So, if you're using this website for anything else, be sure to check what you can, basically the do's and don'ts, because it is listed on this website. Now, from here, after I download this image, in Photoshop, I'm going to go ahead and open it, which I already have. And in my Create UV here, I need to fill in these squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, first of all, I'm going to hold down left click and duplicate this. This is the new layer, create new layer. You see it in the bottom right hand corner. It's the little square with the corner flipped up. Basically like a piece of paper with the folded corner. So I'm going to go ahead and take this background layer and drag it and hover it right over that create new layer. Now what that's going to do is just going to create a copy which is no longer locked, and I can go ahead and just edit this really easily. So I'm going to just take my selection tool here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want to just take a look at where I would like this to sort of come from. And I think I'm going to exclude the panels actually because I don't see them on the bottom, whether they're there or not. So I'm just going to start right here and just click and drag and just make a pretty cool little selection here and try to make it as square as possible basically. And I think I'll go with that. And from here I'm going to press Control C, Control C, Control C, or edit, copy, edit, copy. Now I'm going to go back into my crates here, and just so you know, I just used my selection tool here, rectangular marquee tool here. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this in the scene. Now I need to make sure I can change the size of it because I want it to fit inside of these squares. So I'm going to hold Control and T, and that's going to bring me to Edit Transform. I'll press Enter really quickly. That's how you exit that. Edit Transform. Oh, Edit Free Transform, excuse me. Free Transform, Control T. So Control T, Free Transform, and in the newest version of Photoshop, you don't have to hold Shift anymore to scale it uniformly. It was one of those redundant things. It just finally gave in and was like, yes, we're not going to force you to press it all the time because people do it so often. Anyway, now I'm going to hold Shift in order to just stretch this out to fit this properly, and I'm going to press Enter. Now, just as I did before, I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag this one, and top left crate. I can label these as I go. I'm going to press Control T, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag this over. And if you need to, you can always bring down your opacity. That's with a little here. You can type it in. That's one way to do it. And then you can always see the texture behind it. It's sort of like X-ray as we've been doing with Maya. And then when you're ready, go ahead and just type back in 100%. And I'm going to call this top right crate. Now I can actually do two at a time. So I can select one, hold Control, select the other one, or hold Shift and select the other one, and then just run a click and drag. With both of them still selected, I'm going to go over here and just drag these in. You can also do one at a time, and you can always also change the opacity, and then I can use my arrow tool keys here to try to make sure that I get it to fit just right. So I think that's pretty good, and now I'm just going to go ahead and bring this back up. And I noticed that this one's going to be called mid left and create, and this one will be mid right create. And I noticed this one's slightly off, so I can go ahead and just use my arrow keys with this move tool selected, keyboard shortcut V. Now with that being said, I am going to do the same thing, but now to the bottom two. So I'm going to just copy those and then use my move tool and just drag these over. And now I notice it's off on this side, so this is going to be bottom left create. This will be bottom right create. And using my move tool, I'm just going to use my arrow keys to sort of drag that into place, pixel by pixel, and get that back into place also. And now I just pressed Control and 0, or Control and 0. So Control plus will zoom in, Control minus will zoom out, and then Control 0 will auto fit it to fit the entire screen there. And then the other thing is be sure to try to label these, and that's just to double click these. It'll make your life easier if you ever have to make any edits. Now I'm going to go ahead and do two things. First thing I'm going to do now that I've got this all set is I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to name that Create Diffuse PSD, and File, Save As. I'm going to save the Photoshop file, but I'm also going to go ahead and save out a Targa file. And the reason I save out as a Targa file, you could save it out as a JPEG, you could save it out as a PNG, but I find this to be, the reason I save it out as a Targa is because it holds the highest possible resolution when you go to save. So when I'm going to save it out as create _ diffuse.tga, and I'm going to click save, and then it's going to come up with Targa options, and I'm save it as 32 bits slash pixel. I want to press OK. And I'm actually going to do that one more time because I believe I forgot to do something that I wanted to show you. So I'm going to save this out as Targa, and I did. And I know this is going to be a future mistake you make, and you're going to be like, oh my god, why did that happen? So actually, before I even show you how to fix this, let me show you what I did wrong. So I'm going to go into Maya here, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to highlight my object. I'm going to hold right click and go to Assign New Material, just as we did with the sword. I'm going to select a blend. Now, under blend, okay, I'm going to go down to color, and I'm going to hit this little checker box on the far right side next to color. So color, and I'm going to hit this little checker box. Now over here, it's going to come up with a pop-up window, and it's going to say create render node, and we're going to select file. From here, we're going to go to image name and click the little folder. And before I drag that over, let me go ahead and locate the file. And this is it. Okay, so you'll notice here it looks sort of like the UVs did. So create UVs, right? Create diffuse. Should be okay, right? Click open. Okay. So I don't see anything, right? What happened? So now I'm going to give you a second just to remember. I know you probably won't know the answer right away, but if you remember from a previous video I had shown you, and recorded, the number keys on the keyboard all do something. So one is just regular polygon mode. 2 would give you what it would look like in the regular mode as well as smooth preview. 3 is smooth preview. 4 is wireframe. 5 is shaded display. And I'm going to press 1 just to bring it back to normal shape. And then I'm going to tap 6, and it's going to give me wireframe with shaded. But here's the weird thing. I can see only these edges. And that kind of looks like wood, right? A little bit. But what did I do wrong? I'm going to tell you. And this is definitely going to be probably something you do more than once in the future when doing these. So here's how you fix it. When you click on this object, you'll notice when I brought in that file, it went from, it imported not only just a color map. For whatever reason, we never selected transparency, but you'll see it automatically added a transparency one. Okay? So why did that happen? That happened because when I saved this out as a Targa file, save scene as, and we'll go Targa. When I saved this file out as a Targa, there's one really critical button I didn't press, and that's the alpha channels button. I forgot to press the alpha channels button. And what that does is it creates, when I assign that material to an object in Maya, without checking that box, or with that box checked, it's going to automatically create a transparency map for it too, because in alpha and transparency are basically the same exact things. Also opacity, right? Transparency, alpha, and opacity are all 3 different names that do the same exact thing. And not only this, Maya understands that alpha channels in Photoshop, it understands to set it automatically as a transparency map, right? So make sure you check that box off, so we're not saving out the alphas at all. It's just going to be the image. So we're going to save it out as a diffuse. And I'm going to keep the name. It's going to ask me if I want to replace it. I'm going to click yes. 32 bits per pixel, yes, and click OK. Now that I've explained that, when I go into color, and let me go to color, and I can click the little arrow here, and I click reload, it automatically fixes itself because it no longer has the transparency map attached to it. It is trying to pull one now, but it's no longer the same. So now what I'm going to do, if that didn't work for you, sometimes it lingers, that transparency map, it'll stay in there. I don't know, maybe 2019's done some update or something, but I know for a fact in previous versions it didn't. So in case it didn't just pop up automatically for you, and be sure to press 6 on your keyboard. If I hold right click and do assign new material, just do another blend, and then just go ahead and locate that file. You'll see that it pops up automatically. Now I'm gonna show you one last thing, right? Pretty cool, right? So we just created our first fully textured object in Maya, which is a cube. It does have too much reflectivity and stuff like that, but let's go ahead and fix that before I show you one last thing. So I'm going to select on my object, and I'm going to go into my reflectivity. I'm going to turn that down. I'm going to bring down my specular roll-off, and I'm also going to bring down my eccentricity, or maybe bring up my eccentricity, bring my specular roll-off down. And now, too much. Nope, bring down my eccentricity. And now it's a little bit more, it's almost like it's recently had a fresh coat of stain added to it with that quick little glimmer. If I bring this all the way down, it won't have it at all. And same thing here. If I bring my eccentricity, because wood doesn't really have that, but at the same time it does, especially, whoops, if it did just have some kind of coat added to it. So there's always some kind of shine and specularity to some objects like this. Now, anyway, final thing I want to show you is a couple things. If I go into Photoshop, I'm going to just do this really quickly, and I'm just going to use my I'll use the text tool. I'm going to type in 1. And let's just make it black. Now here's one way to sort of check you're just duplicating these as I duplicated the other ones for the crate. If you go ahead and put a number on each one of these, crate number diffuse. And let me make sure when I save that out, I click Alpha Channels, save, yes, and OK. Alright, so now I'm going to go back into Maya. I'm going to select that file. And now you'll see that these numbers are all located on here, and you can see one's facing horizontally and everything like that. So that's one quick way to sort of check this. Now, there's two ways you can if you wanted to rotate these. Obviously, now I know the one is horizontal. I could go in here, my top left crate, I'm going to press Control T, and I'm going to hold Shift. So my free transform tool, Control T, or edit free transform, and then I'm going to hold Shift. And if I hover around the corner, you'll notice I get a little sort of curved arrows, and that's going to allow me to rotate. And if I hold Shift, it will also snap at various degrees. And right now I have mine, if you notice, it's snapped to 90 degrees, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to press Enter. I'm going to press Control Shift S to save as. I'm going to save this as a TGA and create number dot diffuse, save, yes, okay. So I'm going to show you two ways to go ahead and adjust things. And if I go ahead and go color, and now I'm going to reload, it didn't do anything when it's supposed to. On my number 1, create diffuse. Huh. Or maybe it did and I just didn't even notice it and it automatically refreshed. So either way, actually I believe it did. Yes. So anyway, now let me show you one other way to do it. Alright? I'm almost positive it did. So let me switch into my UV editor. And instead of going through that entire thing, and also in my UV editor, I can press 6 and my textures will show up. What I can do is I can go to my tools and move UV shell tool, and I can select any one I would like. So let's just see, let's select 4. So I've selected 4. You'll notice in the persp view it all selected with the green corners. If I tap spacebar in here, I should be able to rotate this. The buttons used to be right here. If not, I know how to find it really easily. And it's just seeing if it's right in here. I don't know how to quickly find it in there, but one thing I will show you, because they switched to this thing called the UV Toolkit, which I keep docked over here. But the way to get it is if you go to Tools, it'll be Hide UV Toolkit or Show UV Toolkit. I keep mine docked on the side, especially when I'm unwrapping quite a bit. And now I've got my objects. I don't know why that happened, but I just went ahead and deselected and reselected my object, and my texture came back. So now I'm going to go back to my tools and move UV shell tool. I'm going to click on 4, and now instead of going through that whole process where I wanted to rotate the one in Photoshop and then resave it and then refresh the texture in here, I'm just going to select it here, and then I'm going to go to my transform in my UV toolkit, and under rotate, see it says rotate, and these are by degrees, so 90 degrees, and this is rotate left or rotate right, or clockwise and counterclockwise. So I'm going to do clockwise, rotate clockwise, and one thing you'll notice on 4 is that it rotated. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one more time. You'll see right away. So that's a quick way to do that. So if I wanted to get all these numbers to face the right way, let me click on 1 again. Let's do rotate, rotate, rotate. And you'll see, let's just say I wanted all the numbers to be right side up. That's how you go ahead and do that. And let's just say I wanted this one to be another way. There we go. Now I've got that one. And let's just say I wanted this one also. Perfect. So that's how you can go ahead and change it. Now that you've got like sort of these numbers laid out, if you wanted to, because I have 2 of them saved out, if I go back to my attribute editor on Blend 2, instead of using create diffuse, oh, that's probably why. I saved out create diffuse, I guess, with these numbers on it also. I'm just going to turn these off and TGA and turn off alpha channels and save. Yes. Okay. And now I'll go back in here and reload my textures. Right? So now I would know exactly how it's looking or whatever. So that's texturing. And I showed you a quick way to sort of begin editing your textures. You can either do it in Photoshop beforehand, or you could start to rotate some of the UV shells themselves to get them to rotate properly. Anyway, I just wanted to show you how to sort of rotate a texture, because when you automatic unwrap it, you won't know until you apply the texture in which direction it's facing. So that's a quick kind of way to sort of do it easily. Anyway, that's all I've got for you on unwrapping, or an introduction to unwrapping. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you have a lot of fun texturing the crate. So yeah, again, this is just such a common item you'll see in video games for breaking a box open to loot, and or ducking behind from enemy fire. So or even just used as like sort of maze pieces throughout, as decorative pieces also in 3D video games, or animations or whatever. Anyway, so I just wanted to go ahead and give you an intro to that. If you do have any questions, be sure to shoot me a message on inbox. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thanks for watching, and yeah, that's all I got for you.